you hear her?
You're good.
Okay, good. Technical difficulties and all. So those are autographs of, what is one from the Olympics?
Yeah, this was from the Russian American. Remember, what was it, 1980? I don't know if you remember
Wow.
that game. It was
No.
like, I can't even say the emotions that were going through people at that time because we were going to lose. And it was, they actually made a movie, Miracle on Ice, a
Oh.
Disney movie. It was all these literally kids who got together and they're like, we're never going to do anything. And they won. And you should watch the movie. I'm getting goosebumps saying it.
Oh,
It's like,
I'm getting
feel
goosebumps and
good.
I haven't even seen it. That sounds amazing. I
Yeah,
love the little underdog stories. They're like the best.
exactly. It's the feel good, like just keep persisting, just keep going, just keep doing what you know you can do and you can make it happen, and that's the idea behind the movie, but it's a great story.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I don't remember it. I was pretty young, but this is exciting. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
I know the recent movie, and again, I haven't watched it because I was actually watching the Olympics, the one from this year about the men's basketball and how, the USA came from behind and won. And it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like, I know that's really touched a lot of people. So I really enjoy those movies and stories that inspire us to, like you said, keep going, persistence,
Right. Right.
perseverance, never give
Right.
up, David and Goliath, like all the things.
Yeah. I mean, that's really why I love the Olympics so much because it's still that raw, show up, do your best. And that day, that's life, show up, do your best. And that day, it may work for you, it may not work for you, but leave it out all out there, know that you did your best.
Yeah, and I love what you said about just the raw because you see the emotions, the pain, the anguish, the joy, the
Exactly.
elation,
Yep.
like and
Yep.
everything in between. Because for some people, this is their one and only shot, and so
Yeah.
it's fun to go on that sort of emotional ride with everybody, and anxiously see what
Totally.
the outcome is.
Totally. Faster, higher, stronger. Yep.
Yeah,
The motto.
yeah. Which every year it's like that. My gosh, what they're able to do these days, it's just crazy, insane. And then you realize like how much training, effort, dedication goes into getting to that level.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I never take that for granted. I know exactly, like, I
Right.
mean, I'm not at all in even a hundredth of that. And I know what I have to do just to sort of maintain good health.
Right. No, really, like every day behind the scenes of what they give up, in
Yeah.
regular life of not doing the little joyful things. And for this one moment, one shot, it's not even like, there's going to be a second game or a third game or another season. It's like, this is it.
Yeah, this is it for 4 years. And can you
Yeah.
stay relevant for four
Yeah.
years? I
Right.
mean, because even
Right.
the Super Bowl, you look at that, okay, 16 games, playoffs, but at least
Right.
there's like next year. This is 4
Exactly.
years before you
Yeah.
have another shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love
So
your podcast on the Olympics. I love it.
ah, awesome. Thank you.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, and how does that play into like your specialty, the neuroscience behind the joy, the compassion, all the emotions that we go through? Is there a
Oh, wow.
correlation there?
No, yeah, that's a great question. No, it really does, because you look at, the beauty of what we can do now with neuroscience is measure, these things that we've talked about, these brain chemicals, things like serotonin, things like dopamine, actually measure them and not say, well, I think I'm high or I think I'm low on this or that. And you can bring somebody to their optimal of whatever their working system is, and not, the kind of, I want to do my best, I'm in there, I want to make it happen, but actually have your body optimal to whatever it is you've got to give. We're going to get you there. And then you look at the genetic layers behind that, which is even the next layer of exciting, to where you could want to have a great mood, get out there, practice every day, train. But if you've got an error in the coding of, for
Mm.
example, what's going to break down serotonin or dopamine, it's not just let's wish we get there,
Mm.
right? So we can get people optimal to show up their best.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, and again, this very much relates to like addiction and whatnot, is like
Yep.
it's got to be a combination of mindset and physical physical. It can't be one or the other, or all in on one or all in on the other. And being super great in one isn't necessarily going to compensate for the other. You've got to have both sort of going forward for optimal performance, health, mental health, all that stuff.
Right. Absolutely correct. And how does that cross over to the addiction part of things? It's if you're functioning every day in less than optimal, you're trying to climb uphill with that battle. You're not getting silver, gold, or bronze, so to speak, bringing it back to the Olympic part. It's
Yeah.
it's a struggle to where you don't have everything that you need inside of you to make that have the best shot at getting there. It's like you didn't have the track shoes,
Yeah.
but we expected you to go win that race.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I also wonder, and I'm curious your viewpoint on this. So like, for example, my program, we very much focus on the physical. We get them off all the drugs, alcohol, all that stuff. Let's
Yep.
rebuild your body, good food, education on health, water, all those things, sleep. And then there's the mental aspect, like we talked about, and it's, confronting your past, dealing with your trauma, going through the motions, resetting and starting a new foundation and structure for life. But then there's the spiritual component that we very much believe in. Where does the spiritual component come into neuroscience?
Ah, beautiful question. I talk about health as more than the absence of disease. So for a
Mm.
lot of people, that's like, oh, wait a minute, more than the absence of disease. Yeah, we have to have our physical health. We have to have our emotional health. We have to have our intellectual health. We have to have our spiritual health. And I always make spiritual health the last one because all those other things have to be in place to get to the spiritual health. If you are physically fighting yourself and your life and your physiology, spirituality is the last thing in the world you're going to be thinking about. And it is such an important component
Mm.
of who we are. We're
Yeah.
all individual souls. There's 8 billion people in the world with 8 billion different sets of DNA. We are all truly unique, right?
Yeah.
And that's that only one. That's the only one soul for you. That's how you show up with that spirituality. Such a beautiful piece of life. And unfortunately, a lot of people never even get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost feel like, well, like what I witness is there's a certain spiritual aspect of even coming into, say, rehab. There's a surrender piece
Right,
that has to
right,
be there, a
right.
surrender and a hope. And you're right. Then let's work on the physical, let's work on the mental.
Yeah,
And for us, we're trying to put in mindfulness throughout the program and hoping that by the time they get to, latter stages of the program, that that's part of their practice and they have
right,
all three every day in their daily practice, not, and
right.
like we talked about before, not overly one or the other, but a good balance of all of them. And that kind of sets people up for their best road to success.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of that taking that pressure off of like, I'm showing up as me, but there's a higher power that
Yeah.
I have here to call on.
Yeah. Well, and I think so many people, especially in addiction, they forget that, they've
Yeah.
abandoned it. It was forced on them as children and they totally
Right.
rebelled against it.
Right.
There is
Right.
not for a lot of people, not a strong foundation. Now, some of them who really had a strong foundation, it's much easier to come back to that.
Go
But some
back.
people who've never had it, never seen it, had hard
Yeah.
lives, went through a lot of hard stuff. It's like trying to
Yeah.
discover that later on. It can be
Yeah.
a beautiful journey, or it could be like, oh, that's not for me. It never worked
Absolutely.
before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of that trauma piece of life, right? That is part of addiction.
Yeah.
We all have the big T's, the little T's. How did they affect you? Right? It's the environment you've been in, it's your genetics. All of those, that's what makes addiction so complicated because there's so many layers to it. And it's how did that trauma affect you? And did it make you say there is no higher power? This is, it's a big mess and it's chaos and I'm nobody, and you lose that piece of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think also certain modalities really focus on almost the victim mentality, which
Yep,
again, that
absolutely.
plays into no spirituality because you're,
Yep,
God hates me. I'm a victim of this. And until they can like sort of find personal accountability and responsibility for having created everything in their universe to some
right,
lesser
right,
or greater degree, they think they have no spirituality and God doesn't like them because
right.
they're a victim of whatever he's laying out for them.
Exactly, exactly. I'm glad you brought that point up because that is so important. And we can easily put ourselves in the victim box if we want to. There's enough reasons in everyone's life
Yeah.
to where we could easily say, you know what, look at all these things. This is the way it is, but then you lose, so what, it doesn't serve the purpose. And that's not like a quick conversation. Let's get you there. Like, as you're doing the work with your clients. It's time, it's understanding, and it's getting to that place. But one of the biggest pieces that can be offered to someone, addiction, non-addiction, just raising a child, is resiliency. Life is not always going to be easy.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's never going to be easy.
No,
That's one
no.
of the things I tell my clients, if I'm speaking with them before they leave, is like, now the real work begins. Like, you just
Right,
spent 2 months like
right,
deep diving all your stuff and your past, and this has been hard, but you've also kind of
right.
been in a bubble. Now the real
Yep.
test comes.
Yeah, now you have to go back into that world
Yeah.
and say, I've got the tools. Let me stay strong. Let me keep on remembering all the things I did, and pull the tools out of the toolbox to say, let's use them and see them work. And sometimes you're going to trip. Sometimes you're going to fall.
Yeah.
Get back up.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a big part, like even for myself personally, that I've had to learn is when to give yourself grace,
Mhm.
because life is hard and we're not perfect. And sometimes we
Yep.
do make mistakes. Or, but then at the same time, not giving yourself so much grace that you're kind of giving yourself a pass to
Right.
do whatever it is you need and want to do because it feels good and you don't want to be responsible.
Exactly. There's that fine line in it, the William Shakespeare, to thy own self be true. You have to be true to yourself. I call it the honesty inventory. It's like, don't try to sell me on it. You're
Yeah.
the one who has to live it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when do you work with people personally as an addictionologist or more on a group setting?
Sure. So what we do at our company, Wired for Addiction, is the physiological piece. So we look at someone's unique blueprint. What are you coming into the world with? What's your genetic coding? What's your neuroscience? Where are you at? So we know when we're starting with them, this is really what's happening with you, right? So then we look at 85 different biomarkers. We
Wow.
then create a plan looking at those biochemical pathways to say, how do we optimize where your weaknesses are? We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. Some people think they have no weaknesses. We all do. It's part of the human condition. But
Yeah.
it's in knowing where those weaknesses lie, and then more importantly, what can we do about it to optimize them? So we dive into those biochemical pathways. What do we need to do to support you where we're having a breakdown
Hmm.
in that
And
issue?
are part of these measurements like serotonin,
Sure.
oxytocin, like all the different hormonal
Sure.
things that can play into a person's mental well-being and whatnot?
Yep. So the first part is the neurotransmitters, those brain chemicals, the hormones,
Yeah.
and as one, and then the other part is the genetic markers.
Mhm.
So and we do all of that because that's what makes it complete. Someone can say, well, we'll just use the serotonin example, right? Because there's so many people on SSRIs. We'll look at the serotonin piece. Okay, we're kind of doing the same thing of just putting a Band-Aid on. If we don't look at then the genes to say, are we able to break down serotonin? If we're
Yeah.
not, that's going to be an uphill battle all the time.
Yeah.
So rather than put a Band-Aid on something, jumping in and saying, okay, where do we have the specific problems? Where do those problems lie? And how do we support? That's the beauty of what I think is the most exciting part of science today, epigenetics.
Yeah.
You're born with your DNA. Here's your cards, Angie, play them out. This is you. We now know that the expression of those genes can change. That gives the power back to the individual. That says, Angie, here you go. We're going to change the expression of this. Like when we have someone come to us, example, a mom, daughter's 20 years old. I've never seen my daughter. This is a kid I don't know. For 19 years, this is how she lived. All of a sudden, this is who she is. Like, okay, tell me what's gone on from year 19 to year 20. Oh, she went away to college. She's doing her college class studies. She's trying to hold down a part-time job. She's living by herself for the first time. So she's making her own choices about what she eats, when she goes to sleep, if she goes to sleep, parties that she goes to, all new friends. So her total environment has changed. While those genes that we're now seeing were always there, we didn't see them get turned on because her environment never really played a negative role to bringing those genes out. So
That's fascinating.
that's the part that it gives the power back to the individual. You know, and
Yeah.
if we want to remove the victim card, this is the place we remove the victim card. You
Yeah.
know, we're all born into something. If we want to, you know, really get honest, the strengths, the weaknesses of the families we came from, our family tree, all that kind of stuff, you know, we could all have conversations forever. But this is the part that you can change for yourself, which is beautiful.
That's fascinating. And you can you change it multiple times throughout your life? Like, like
Sure.
for example, that girl, and then let's fast forward, she gets it together, falls in love, gets married, has a kid. 10 years
Right.
from now, is
Right.
her genes different because of the kid component and all
Yes.
that?
That's the example I was just going to use.
Yeah.
Perfect. Because yeah, she's like, okay, I got it together. School was easy. I got my job. I'm swimming through life. Met this, guy, and everything's wonderful. Get married. We have a baby. Well, all of a sudden, everything's changed in my physiology. Okay. All right. We know what we need to do because the genetic piece of this, that's a one-time test. It's who you are. It's your
Yeah.
blueprint. What changes is the expression. So we go back, we see where those weaknesses are. Okay, and we see the symptomatic expression. What do we need to do to support that? And they know it. To me, that's the sweet spot. That's the perfect place that you know what your strengths and weaknesses are going into the game of life.
Yeah.
And you know how to play it better, right? Like I say to kids, you're at an age where your buddies at school are going to say, hey, after school, we're going to try this. We're going to do this. You do it with your friends. Next day, you're like, oh man, that was good. And they're like, no, 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 we're going to do something different today. And you're like, no, that was good. This is the why. Oh, that was good because we know in your genetic makeup that was going to really turn you on.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like your playbook for life. We'll bring it back to the sports thing, right? It's like your playbook for life to know these things. And we still all get to make our choices, right? We
Yeah.
still make our choices. We all still have free will, but we know what our playbook is.
I love that. It actually, for me, explains why people choose and stay with their drug of choice. So, for like example, back in the day, I was very prone to meth. It made me active,
Yep.
made me lose weight. Like I love that feeling.
Yep.
Other
Yep.
people, no, they wanted heroin. That's going to help them
Yep.
check out. That's going to put them in this euphoric place. And I always wondered, like, what drove people. And I thought it was more psychological, but now I'm starting to wonder if there's
Yeah.
that genetic component where that particular drug or alcohol or whatever is that thing that triggers that part that gives them that feeling. And that's
Right.
why they're prone to, I want to go back to that drug. I don't want to do that new drug. That's the one that
Right.
makes me feel good.
Right. And it's that first experience often that you have. It's like there's always a co-occurring. There's
Yeah.
always an underlying reason. There, be it anxiety, be it depression, OCD, ADD, ADHD, whatever it is. There's a reason you don't even know you're trying to self-medicate. There's a reason you're reaching outside of yourself to bring something in to change your resting state. You're
Mm,
not thinking all those things through, but that's exactly what you're doing. And you find that thing and it's like, whoa, euphoria, right? It works until it doesn't work.
yeah.
Initially, it's everything you were looking for. Like, I never felt that calm. Oh my gosh, that was my place. You go back and you look at that individual's makeup from a genetic standpoint, and I'd look at the GAD1 gene, glutamic acid decarboxylase. Its job is to convert glutamic acid, which is a stimulant neurotransmitter, to GABA, which is a calming neurotransmitter. If you can't convert, you never get to the calm. All of a
Mm,
sudden, this outside thing came in, and for that moment, gave you the calm. You said, I love this calm. You're always trying to get back to that.
yeah.
But we identify that, boom, okay, what do we need to do to get you to be the calm without taking something else that's going to hurt you?
Yeah. Well, and I love this because I think a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, drugs, alcohol, I get it, just cut it out of my life and I'll be fine. But addiction can come in many forms. It could be
Oh, sure.
retail therapy, it could be
Yeah.
food, it could be
Yeah.
over exercise. Like there is so many different forms of addiction that go unnoticed because on the surface they don't seem harmful, but they react in the exact same way.
Absolutely right. The process addictions, right? Porn, sex, shopping, food, all of those things, gambling.
Yeah.
Um, they're still looking to do the same thing, to
Yeah.
change the resting state, to change how I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is then the solution? What is the cure? What is it that you implement that helps people
Right.
sort of regulate, identify, and change this?
Right. So it after we get your unique labs back, we look at, okay, what do we need to do on that biochemical pathway? Where do we need to support it? It could be nutraceuticals, it could be pharmaceuticals, it could be a combination of both. It could,
Mm,
and depending on what the person's goal is too. It could also be looking at another lab. We don't have the patent on it, but this is a different lab that we do, also a pharmacogenomic lab, looking what medications are going to be compatible with your DNA. So I can't tell you the amount of times, Angie, that we have someone that's been on an SSRI for decades. First off,
yeah,
they were never meant to be. They were meant to be acute situations. Life is tough right now. Let's do this for the next 2 weeks, not to live on for 20 years.
yep,
And we get people with first off measure their serotonin is in the tank. I'm like, okay, so first off, this was never working for you. So for 20 years, your bladder, your kidneys, your liver was processing this stuff, not working. We look at your genetic makeup now and see, okay, there's a problem there. Beyond that, we look at a gene that will tell us if an SSRI is even going to be effective for you.
yeah.
So had that been done initially, we would have had to look at a different way to get that person to be feeling better. But even identifying, most people are diagnosed with, well, I just don't feel like I did before. I don't really, I don't have the joy of life. I don't want to get up off the couch. I don't want to go to my kid's soccer game. Okay, you're depressed. How do we know that? Like depression could be serotonin, it could be dopamine, it could be epinephrine, it could be norepinephrine, it could be one, two, three, all four of those. Unless we have objective measurements with labs, we don't know that. We're guessing. We're throwing a dart, hoping we land someplace close. Sometimes we do, most of the time we don't.
Yeah.
So, but beyond that, it was looking at that gene. It was never going to be effective for that individual to begin with. What does that do to that individual's emotional state? When a doctor says to you, no, this works. We've got 6 different times because you kept telling me it didn't work. This one works for you. And that person's saying, no, it doesn't. You're destroying that person's self of being of like, no, this is you wanting to be this way. When had they taken a deeper dive, they'd know that it was never going to work for that individual.
Oh my God, you're just like speaking my heart on this. Like I would say 90% of the clients that come into my program have been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, bipolar, you
Yep.
name it, they've got
Yep.
it. However, they were diagnosed ADHD, all the things. However,
Yep.
they were diagnosed when, they were a teenager and their emotions and hormones
Right.
were through the roof, or when they were on drugs or alcohol, hung over, withdrawing.
Right.
So now they have a label and they have their medications. And so, like, our philosophy is let's take you off everything safely, obviously. Let's
Right.
reset your baseline and let's see if you actually feel that you have this condition or you need that. And I can't tell you, client after client is like, oh my God, I've been living with this condition my whole life. And really, all I needed to do was diet, exercise, and, take care of myself and do the things for my mental health, handle my trauma. I didn't need any of those things, and
Right.
I'm not any of those things. Like, it's
Right.
so beautiful to see that, but it's also very scary to see, and you nailed it on the head, like how much addiction is created by well-meaning doctors or parents or different people trying to fix people instead of getting to the root of the cause. They're just throwing medication at it, which doesn't fix it.
Right. Right.
And the
I mean,
labels, which is just as damaging mentally.
oh no, people then own their labels. You
Yeah.
don't understand. I'm
My
very,
anxiety,
yeah,
God. Oh,
Boom.
every time
Yeah.
I hear that, it's like
Yeah.
fingernails on a chalkboard. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
chalkboard. It's like,
Exactly.
that's not you. You were identifying with
Exactly.
something.
Exactly. Exactly right. And I've been in practice for 36 years. I saw people move from dependency to addiction, all unwilling suspects.
Yeah.
Here, take this. Here, take this, with the
Yeah.
trust that this is what I'm supposed to be taking, without knowing what their genetic makeup was. And in fairness, this technology, excuse me, wasn't available then
Yeah.
like it is now.
Sure. And also even just the knowledge that we have these
Right,
days.
right, right. So really, in like 19 years ago, we started looking at, 20 years ago, looking at the being able to measure the serotonin, dopamine, all those neurotransmitters, phenylethylamine. And then it was only tail end of 2015 that technology became available for us to dive into the genes.
Yeah.
After the genome mapping occurred, first 2003, and then 2008, we looked at the 1,000 most important genes for diseases and conditions, and then it just continued to give us more information and more information. So in fairness, wasn't always available, but the shame that it is available now and people are still talking the same old game, that's where a problem is.
Yeah. Well, and also just because this knowledge isn't widely known with the barrage of 20 commercials that they're being hit with all day. You don't like how you feel. It's okay. Add on this one, take this one. Ignore these little side effects over here, but look how happy
Right,
you could be. It's like they're
right,
just barraged where they don't
right,
have the actual data because that's sort of, I don't know if it's suppressed, but it's just not wildly known because there's
correct.
not as much money in it. And they're being told day in and day out that they have a problem and it's
Absolutely.
okay. You don't have to do anything about it. Just take this pill. Like that's
Right,
and
right.
and again with society with the quick fix, like, oh, okay, I'll just take the pill. I don't have to do the work.
Right, we're trained to think that way, and a
Yeah.
brilliant business model. I'm not anti-pharmaceutical. I am anti-abuse of pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
Pharmaceuticals need to be brought into the game to save somebody's life, not for people to live on them. And people were trained to live on it. They want the quick fix. They're like, no, no, no. Like, you don't understand. For the past 2 weeks, my life's been really rough. Like, seriously? That's how we grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we don't grow when life is good,
Yeah.
grow in the tough times. So it's then the professional should be saying, okay, is this like real life, like life's hard, or is this we really have an issue here that we need to take a deeper dive in and start by using the labs to know what we're talking about, instead of throwing a label on somebody, have them own it, and then they go home, Eeyore, like, I'm an anxious and depressed person.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to live out my life. What?
Yeah. And that's as good as it'll ever get. This is just
Yeah.
who I am. Yeah.
And it's a business model.
Yeah,
It is a
absolutely.
business
Well, and
model.
again, like we talk about the system, we have doctors where they used to, when you would go to your doctor, you'd spend an hour. Okay, what's your diet? What's your exercise? Let's like have a two-way communication. Now it's like you fill out the sheet, they glance down it and they're like, okay, so
Right.
what's the problem? And they're because it's such a litigious area, they're just like, oh, let me just make you comfortable because I don't want you to walk out of here and go kill yourself and blame me. So let's
Right.
comfort you and make sure that you're going to be safe when you leave here
Yep.
because they're thinking about personal liability. They don't
Yep.
have the time to deep dive with you and come up with
Yep.
a plan and come back in 2 weeks and tell me how it is. It's more
Yep.
like, revolving door. We just got to keep everybody moving because there's so many people coming in.
Exactly. They have 10 minutes, 5 of which is paperwork, 5 to spend with you. How are you going to find out in 5 minutes what's really going on with this individual that you don't even know? You
Yeah.
know, someone's word of, go back to the depression example, someone's word of, just, I'm depressed. You don't know who that person is. What does that word mean for them? We're diagnosing based on vocabulary words. What if you and I, Angie, don't have the same definitions for that word?
Yeah.
It doesn't
Absolutely.
make sense. None of it makes sense. And we're practicing within addiction and the umbrella of mental health like it's 1950.
Yeah.
And we have more tools. We have more resources. We need to employ these tools and resources and not make second class citizens out of, this is where you are in your health. It's still health. It's still part of health, behavioral health, mental health. It's still health, not you're over here. You got yourself there. You can get yourself out of there. Shame on you. We want to say we don't have stigma anymore. We still have stigma.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's frustrating too, because when people finally get to a point where they're like, okay, I need help. I need mental health. I'm willing to go do the work to, change this addiction and overcome it, what 90% of my competitors do. And I don't even say competitors, they're just 90% of other rehabs, because, we all have our own thing, but they'll
Right.
come in as an alcoholic and they'll leave on 5 different medications.
Right.
So maybe they get a sponsor, maybe they do a couple steps, or maybe not. But
Yep.
really, now it's like, oh, good, now you're sober. Now you're this, now you're that. But it's like, no, we've just switched what we were on to now being on these things with
Right.
my disease and my condition. This is as good as it's going to get, without,
Yep.
again, doing the work, taking the time, getting in there, figuring out what created these traumas. Like
Yep.
it's hard to watch, because people like
Oh,
want to do the right thing, but then they pay and trust people to help them, and then they're led in a different direction, even as far as like the insurance companies, what they're willing to pay. They
yeah.
would rather pay to put you on a pill than send you through residential program, because it's
Yep.
cheaper, easier, faster, better for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where the whole addiction swapping comes in.
Yeah.
I'm not in bad boy or bad girl school anymore because I'm not drinking, but I'm doing this and I'm
Yeah.
feeling pretty good, right? It's crazy. Great.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, the harmful part is that people's lives don't change. People continue to live life as if it's not the joy that it's supposed to be because of all this, because you're being taken advantage of.
Absolutely. And you're trusting people, doctors,
Right. Right.
professionals that you're paying because they're the professionals. You're
Yep.
trusting them. And then
Yep.
there's, some agenda, or there's just old information, or whatever the cause is. And so it's really difficult, like you said earlier, when you're being labeled and told this is going to fix you and it's not, it starts to, where's my certainty and trust in myself? Like, I don't have it. I thought I felt a certain way, but I'm being told I don't. Okay. That
Yep.
just crushes a
Exactly.
person and their spirit
Crush.
and their knowing that.
Crush. And you don't want to show up anymore and really tell what you're feeling because you're like, I'm wrong.
Yeah. What's the point?
Yep.
Yeah. So once you've identified what these markers are, the either too much, too little, that sort of thing, of the different biomarkers, what is your plan of action? What
Right.
is it? Is it diet? Is it exercise? Is it meditations? What do you
Sure,
deploy?
sure. So lifestyle is part of the recommendations we'll give. Like even looking at someone's genetic makeup, we'd say, okay, intermittent fasting is going to benefit you. I wouldn't say that to everybody. It's going to benefit you. And in this window of 12 to 15 hours, 16 to 18 hours, depending on what your genetic makeup is. I mean, even things as small as that, like the obvious, like the sleep and the exercise. But if your body physiologically isn't allowing you to sleep, everybody wants to have a good night's sleep because we
Mhm.
know that that next day is either the worst day of your life or the best day of your life because
Mhm.
sleep is that important, right? So even pieces like that of we're looking at the physiological and then give the lifestyle recommendations on top of that.
I love that. And you're right. Like, especially at my age, women my age, sleep becomes a factor. There's a lot of women who's going
Yep.
through that midlife
Yep.
hormonal change, and it starts to affect everything. And then, kind of like the new mother, that
Yep.
lack of sleep really starts to play into your mental
Absolutely.
capacity and motions and all the different things. It becomes paramount, and then almost desperation to get that sleep to feel okay.
Absolutely. And the science is there to allow us to know after X amount of hours of sleep deprivation what we see in the psychoses, the hallucinations, verbal, auditory, all those things are real when we don't sleep. There's a reason we have to sleep. There's a reason sleep is used in warfare. We're not going to let you sleep because we're really going to mess with your brain.
Mhm.
This is not, and it kind of, we live in this, like, I'm a grinder. I'm a guy that's out there doing it. I don't need sleep. I sleep through it. No, you do.
Yep, that's like
You're showing up.
90% of the entrepreneur world. Like, and if you
Yeah,
sleep more than 6 hours, there's something wrong with you.
yeah, here's my new Instagram post. Like, you're a loser. Like, no, you are
Exactly.
going to get so much more done in a productive manner, not just showing up and checking the box, but the creativity, the anything that you need to get done is going to be so much more efficient with sleep. It's a necessary part of life. Without sleep, you will die.
Yeah. Yeah. How does that work? So what I've noticed, and I'll just mention this entrepreneur world that, I have a lot of friends and business owners and people like that. I've noticed that for a lot of these people whose minds are going all the time, it seems like the new go-to, and maybe back in the day it was like Ambien or something like that. Now it's gummies. Like,
Yeah.
my mind is going. I take one, THC gummy. I sleep through the night and I feel better than ever. And I have to be honest, I've been around these people and I'm like, wow, you seem really
Yeah.
good. Like you're full of life. It really is putting them into that sleep state and keeping them there. I'm wondering if there's an alternative to that for people who
There
don't
is.
want to, take
There is.
THC every night
Yeah.
or Ambien or whatever.
Right. And that's that it works until it doesn't work. Right now, it's still
Mm,
working for them. Once it doesn't work, because you've never uncovered the why it's not happening, what's happening in your unique physiology that's not allowing your mind to shut down to sleep. What's going on? What's
mm.
keeping you there? And those things are all measurable.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I bring up the THC at night, but these are also the same people that need their Adderall in the morning to get through the day. So it's like,
Right. Right. So what's
it's these little crutches that they're functioning people, high producing. So there's no recognition that possibly these things are also doing some harm as
right?
much as they're helping.
No, it absolutely is. It's working in this moment. It will not continue to work. And you haven't figured out the why behind it. So figuring out the why behind it is going to allow you to sail for a
Mhm.
long time.
Mm.
Not, whoa, we're hitting rough waters. Whoa, that was good, but now, whoa, because it's looking at you, not the company that makes the THC gummies or the company that makes the whatever that's really good at marketing. It's looking at what you're made up of.
Mm. I love that. So you do the testing with you. We find out what we're deficient in. I'm assuming, is there like maybe like amino acids, like vitamin therapy, like a system of sort of maybe bringing down what's overactive, maybe bringing up what's underactive kind of thing?
Exactly. And the starting point would be looking from the nutraceutical side of things, because I mean, you think about it, there's not a single cell in our body made up of a pharmaceutical. Yet that's our go-to for everything. You
Mm,
think about that and you're like, interesting.
yeah.
Good salesmanship. So it's like, where are we not having the enzymes, the cofactors, the amino acids, as you say, looking at all of those different pieces for you, what do we need to give you? And then, okay, let's look at the genetic portion of things. How does that play in? And how far can we get this? Can we do it all on nutraceuticals? Do we need a short-term pharmaceutical perhaps or not? So it really depends on, and most people, it's all done, I shouldn't say it's all done. For most people, figuring out the nutraceutical part of things is 100%.
Wow. I love that. And I also like, and I'm just going to backtrack a little bit to the intermittent fasting because I
Yep,
have a lot of people, Angie, at your age, look how fit and healthy. And what do you do? What's your tips and
right,
tricks? And for me,
right.
it is intermittent fasting.
Yep,
Now, I've tried 1,000 diets in my last, 40 years, up
yeah,
and down, diet, yo-yo. I'm fine as long as I'm restricting calories. If I try to be normal, then it comes back on. I've done keto,
yep,
I've done HGC, like you name it. I've Weight Watchers, you name it. I've done it. But I have had the most success with the intermittent fasting with slash keto slash carnivore. Like that is my happy place.
mm-hmm.
But I try to tell people like this is what works for me, but it doesn't work for
Right,
everybody. Like you got to
right,
find the thing that works for you, that
right.
is fuels your body and makes the best for you.
Absolutely. When you look at what portion of things are we looking at when we're talking about the intermittent fasting, one piece would be mitochondria. We measure different genes related to your mitochondria, how we make energy. If you're not making energy, do you show up as depressed? Maybe. That would be your label, right? Do you show up as maybe lazy? Let's put
Mhm.
this ugly word on you. All of these things. But mitochondria, if you are intermittent fasting, your body is going to be able to utilize that energy that it would have had to metabolize food, and use it to give you the energy that it needs and detoxify your body. Something called autophagy, the garbage man of the cells, right? That we can get rid of that garbage that's making us literally feel like garbage.
Yeah.
So all of it, it's complicated, you know. So for somebody to say, I've got the answer, and it's this one thing, run, because we're looking, because we've been trained this way. We want a single molecule solution to something that's not a single molecule problem.
Mm.
We are complicated. And that's why we look at all of these different areas. Everything else could be perfect, but we'll go back to you're not creating energy. You
Yeah.
feel like crap,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because, like you said, there's just no one size fits all. Because I've ran into other people who are like, if I don't eat every 2 hours, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but if I'm not fueling my body, the blood sugar goes down, the emotions come out, and
Yep.
I'm a mess. And so I
Yep.
have to eat like every 2 hours. And for me, I'm like, oh my God, like
Right.
that'd
For
be
you.
like all I was doing all day. That's terrible.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
just a personal opinion. And yet that works for them.
Correct. That works for them. For you, you're like, I operate best with intermittent fasting. And here's my window where I know it works best, because that next day, my clarity, my energy, I've got so much more energy. Yeah, because you didn't have to use it on that.
Yeah.
But if we haven't identified on that other person, well, why is it that you need that all the time? What aren't we doing? We're not creating energy. We're not creating sugar out of the foods we're eating. We need to know where that is, and we need to correct that. We need to
Mm-hmm.
optimize that.
Mm-hmm. How much does inflammation play into that?
Huge. Um, I think 23 of the genes that we look at out of the 69 have to do with inflammatory markers.
Wow.
Because if you just look at every case, like we're talking about mental health and addiction, if we have inflammatory markers, it is going to exacerbate what we have from a mental health concern, from an
Mm.
addiction concern. It is going to exacerbate that. So important. If you're, I mean, even talk about something as generic as aging, we now call it inflammaging,
Huh.
because it is going to make you older faster.
Wow.
Mhm.
And that's fascinating. And I love that this is coming out because again, when we're talking about like old school rehab,
Yeah.
compared to
Yep.
now, like my rehab,
Yep.
like the
Yep.
go-to was come to rehab, you're going to drink a bunch of coffee, you're going to smoke a lot of cigarettes, you're going to eat a ton of sugar in the beginning
Yep.
because you're getting that feel good and you're replacing the drugs or alcohol that you
Yep.
were on, but then that becomes the new lifestyle, which is also completely unhealthy because
Right.
it's just feeding that inflammation and the cravings. And then you really got to be strong because you're like literally giving yourself cravings by what you're introducing into your body to overcome the addiction that you had to something else.
Exactly right. Exactly right. All of those things, that the coffee, the cigarettes, the sugar, it's like, what are you doing? Yeah. That is old
Yeah.
school. And unfortunately, the old school is still the school everybody's going to, right? It's like,
Right. Yeah, I
do it.
get pretty spoiled because I'm out here in California and it's pretty healthcare-ish,
Yeah.
health,
Yeah.
knowledge, lots of availability of good things,
Right.
lots of
Right.
all that. And it's just not the case. Like I'm always surprised, like when I travel, I'll go see my daughter in Tennessee or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
dang, you guys don't have healthy food for like miles. No
Yeah. Yeah.
wonder. No
Yeah.
wonder.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then there's the cost, right? Like healthy food is expensive, right
Yeah.
foods, right knowledge, it all comes at such a higher cost for people who don't have money or means
Right.
or access to, good education on these things. And so they're just sort of funneled into this other system,
Yep.
which is not good healthcare. Like it's the anti-healthcare, which again, now we're talking about the mental health being part of that
Right.
health that
Right.
feeds the whole, addictive machine.
Yeah, those food deserts, as they're called, right? It's like people going into the gas station, the 7-Eleven, to get their meal. And
Mhm.
what is it going to be? Something that makes me feel like I have energy to finish the rest of my day because I'm buying lunch. And you're going to do this and then skyrocket. But beyond that, it's the cycle that it gets your body into. It's it goes back that we were trained, take this, do this, and you'll be
Mhm.
fine. And
Mhm.
it doesn't work, and it never will work.
How much does the medications, like when you do a testing for somebody, and let's say they are on SSRIs, does that blanket the results that you're looking for? Or are you able to see the reality underneath the drug to properly be able to give like a path off of it?
Yeah, we're able to see the reality behind the drug. And then for that person too, whether that SRI was working for them or not, to look at, is that particular one even compatible with your DNA? If some people feel like I've got to stay on this, okay, is this, is it working? Is it effective? If we do the measurements and we see you're on it and your serotonin is in the tank off the chart low, like, okay, not working. Let's
Mhm.
look at all the other reasons why. Let's look at your genes and see where the problem is in the breakdown or the creation of the serotonin, because it's always just going to be a merry-go-round that you're on that you never figure out.
Mm. So another thing that's really big out here in California is MAT, medically assisted
Yep, yep,
treatment. Like it's
yep,
mandatory. Like you have to
yep.
educate people on why they should be on medication if they
Right,
want to come to
right,
rehab.
right.
Um, However, what I've noticed, big trends that we're seeing is, first of all, everybody's put on, and I mean everybody, like you'll go in there on alcohol and you'll walk out on Suboxone. Even though you were not an opiate addict, that pill
Mhm.
somehow is being explained as this is going to help you not drink anymore, even though it doesn't even, that's not its purpose. So, what does that do to a person?
Yeah, it makes them dependent.
Yeah.
So you went to rehab to free yourself and not be dependent on or controlled by a substance, and then you got a new one.
Yeah.
And the like the Vivitrol injections.
Right.
So good for 30 days. I've seen people that on their pharmacogenomic lab reports that's a no-go for them. So it doesn't tell you, it doesn't pick the drug that's going to work for you, but it tells you what's safe, what's cautionary, what's not to be used at all, because you're going to have an adverse side effect. When I see that stuff, and it's just because they made a deal with the place,
Yep.
it's
And there's a lot of money in Vivitrol. Like I think one shot is like you can bill insurance for like 7 grand or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's the windfall,
Yeah.
and it's nothing. It is not. It's insane. It is insanity. We don't even know what the makeup is of this individual, and we're giving them this, and it's like, wait, they have good insurance. It'll pay for this, so let's give them that.
Yep.
It's a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, so, we've had a pretty big shift. It's starting to sway back a little more, but especially so prior to the pandemic, our demographic, our population was 49% people were there for alcohol, 51% combined everything else. So this would be heroin, meth,
Mhm,
pharmaceuticals, weed, you name it, everything was 51.
mhm.
Coming through the pandemic, holy crap, now our demographic, and of course, this is a side effect of the pandemic, 80% is alcohol,
Alcohol. Yeah,
20% everything else combined. And this is even with
yeah.
the introduction of fentanyl on the scene and the availability of that and all the things,
Mhm.
the, trank and all the things with that. So I'm wondering if we're just looking at damaging serotonin levels, how much, and because it's so widely, accepted, everybody's doing it,
Right.
alcohol, how detrimental is that to people and their genetic markers and their,
Oh,
success and that sort of thing?
alcohol will destroy you. It'll destroy you. If you just look at all the basic parts of your body, what it's going to do to you, and because it's marketed so well, and because there's such big lobbying money in it, everybody thinks, it's part of life.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
someone says, "Yeah, I'm not going to have a drink," they find themselves making excuses as to why they're not going to. I'm on antibiotics. They're not on antibiotics, but they feel like they have to make an excuse. Let's just start with your brain. It is going to destroy your brain. It is a neurotoxin. There is
Mm.
no good aspect of alcohol. I mean, I'm just telling the truth. Somebody's going to be like, "Oh, you're anti." I'm like, no, 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 I'm not. I'm just saying what the
No, there's
reality
literally
is.
no health benefit.
There's no health benefit to alcohol. It will destroy your brain. And for me, I want to preserve what I do have, you look at the gut, it's going to destroy your gut. Where is 90% of serotonin made? Using that serotonin example, in your gut. So why do you think then we go from the anxiety to the depression of people, and you need to be on all these different meds now because you've literally destroyed your body?
Yeah.
Can we reverse and get back? We can do a lot to reverse that. We can get you back, but don't buy into it's just alcohol. It will destroy you. And a drink every once in a blue moon, that's not going to destroy you. It's not good for you. It's not a health food,
Yeah.
let's be honest, but it's not going to destroy you.
Yeah. It's like a
The
piece of cake, for a birthday
yeah,
once a
yeah,
year.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, it's a birthday, go for it.
Yeah.
But it became during the pandemic the go-to. It
Yeah.
was like, okay, and haha, everybody's doing it. It's mommy's new group that meets virtually. Everybody's got a glass of wine, and all of
Yeah.
a sudden it became like, okay, it destroys people, it destroys lives. No
Yeah.
one wakes up one day and says, today's a day I can't wait to ruin my life. I'm going to lose my job, my house, my family, my friends. Can't wait. It doesn't work like that. It's a little bit every single day of you getting to that point of your life is gone. You don't
Yeah.
even know what happened. And you were sold a bill of goods that this isn't bad. This is okay.
Yeah, it was essential. Like,
Yeah,
gyms were
yeah,
closed, but
yeah,
alcohol stores stayed open. And by the way,
yeah.
you don't even have to leave your house. We now deliver
Exactly.
to your
We'll get it
doorstep.
to you. Yeah, yeah. Craziness, craziness.
Yeah. Well, and we're seeing, I mean, I'm shocked. Like I've been doing this 30 years and back in the day we used to do like drug-free detoxes on everybody. We just,
Mhm.
heroin, fine. I mean, it was uncomfortable, it was painful, but we got you
Yep.
through it. But you remembered, I don't ever want to go through that again.
Right, right.
Alcohol, same thing. But now we can't ever do that because of the different medications and also because of the alcohol and the what I'm seeing even with young kids. Like I had an incident with a kid that was like 22 years old a week after he was fully medically detoxed, living his normal life in the program, had delayed seizures, like grand mal seizure,
Yeah,
like a week after fully
yeah,
being off of everything. The
yeah.
detrimental side effects of what it's doing to people. And we used to think, oh, just the old dry drunks, they in their
Right,
in their
right, right,
wet brain, like that's
right,
who it
right.
affects. It's like, no, dude, it's affecting everybody,
Yep,
regardless of age, regardless of demographic. Like it is really, and I like that you said it's a neurotoxin.
yeah,
That actually explains a lot.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Everything that you just said. And the danger. I mean, alcohol becomes that most dangerous detox where people die.
They
Not
literally
just that
die.
was really uncomfortable, like you said, heroin. I never want to do that again. I'll never forget that. Alcohol, you can actually die.
Yeah, actually died. Like we've had people, they show up on our doorstep ready to start, and their blood alcohol is so high. We're like, dude, you gotta go to the hospital.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and we've had many people that even the hospital is like, we got to put you in a medically induced coma to get you through this because the
yeah,
DTs are going to be so bad it could literally kill you,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
which is nuts. Like just to
yeah.
see that, because I just don't remember seeing that like 20 years ago. I don't remember people being to that extreme where and if you did, it was like one in a million, not
Right,
one in
right.
20, one in 100.
Yeah, yeah. It became the crutch that was acceptable and funny and all the other parts of it. Yeah, it's there's no part of it that's good.
Yeah. So as far as like your work with people, and you find the biomarkers, you get the nutrigenics, is there an element of counseling that you also do, or a sort of a regimen of now let's handle these traumas kind of thing?
Sure. So if the person's already working with their counselor, their therapist, that needs to keep happening. This is one piece of a three-legged stool,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's biopsychosocial disease. Well, the bio piece we talked about, but we never dove into someone's unique biology.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it. And we talked about the lifestyle parts. Yeah, that's the physical aspect, but it's not, we don't even know who you are, what you made up of, and what we're dealing with, other than the outward symptoms. So absolutely, that's still important. So, continue working with your therapist, counselor. If not, we'll get you to somebody, but definitely still a part of it. And
I love
then
that.
we either work with someone, here's all your information. We go over it, a really lengthy appointment, like a 2 hour, and we work with people all over the world, literally. We drop ship the lab kits all over the globe. And then go over each individual biomarker, what it means, what is what we call the clinical correlation, how does your body act out as a result of that particular biomarker. And then if we have a problem there, what's the depth of that problem? For example, if it's a genetic piece, is one of the genes in the pair affected? Is both of the genes in the pair affected? That's going to have us create a different recommendation. This is really in depth. I mean, we're taking some extremely complicated science and making it to where we can have a conversation about it, which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, what are those recommendations? Okay, you can do this on your own. Here you go. Here's the phases. We're going to start phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, because when we're talking about the neurotransmitters, we have excitatory neurotransmitters, we have inhibitory neurotransmitters. We don't want to raise everything up before we have everything. Okay, now we're calm. Now let's see what we do. So we do it in 3 phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 then brings in all the genetic pieces, and then that enhances everything that we've already been working with. So here's the plan. Here you go, have at it, give us an appointment as needed. Or we have people that say, I want to work with you over this 3-month period of time, stay with you. I don't think I have the bandwidth in myself, to be honest, that I'm going to stay on this and do it right. However people want to do it.
And for the 3 phases, would that be 3 months of work?
So, yeah, so typically 3 to 4 months is what we're looking at. Because what we're doing is saying, what is driving the behavior that we see from the physiological standpoint? What do we have too much of? What do we have too little of? What don't we have? And then we give that to the body. The body says, I recognize this. Oh, I can use this. Oh, I can now make this. And that's what we want to happen.
Mm-hmm. And how much does exercise play into this? Is that something that can, like, because I'm a huge fan of exercise.
Absolutely.
I believe the more healthy you are, the less illness, the less disease, the less all things. So I believe, and again, society, we've become pretty sedentary, also a side effect of the pandemic, but I believe exercise is huge for us.
Oh, it is. I mean, absolutely. Serotonin, you're going to feel it after it. And then you're even going to feel dopamine because you did something you said you were going to do and you completed the task. Boom, I feel good right now, right? So all of those things, the endorphins, depending on what you're doing. For me personally, I have to be out every day in nature. Prefer that I go to the gym a couple times a week, but me, it's walking in nature that I'm like, like I'm late for work, kind of, not just like, there's sometimes I'm like, la, 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 la. But after it, I feel so good. If I don't do that, it's like, today was a harder day. Why? Because I never did that piece. And it's also, for me, it's the classroom of silence.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm in it. I'm doing it. It doesn't mean like stuff isn't in my mind. I want stuff to be in my mind because this is where I'm figuring out things. Right. So it's more than the exercise itself, that physiological. Absolutely. If I don't do it and you don't feel good, you do it. You're like, man, I feel good. Let's go take on the day. But it's all those other parts to it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like and I always talk about this. I'm so fortunate in Santa Cruz here. I live a mile from the redwood forest and I live a mile from the beach. And so for me, and I have a dog that has to be walked multiple times a day, but that's my blessing. Like he came into my life to, even on days where I don't want to, I still have to go walk him. And so I could be traveling and the first thing I want to do is I go down to the beach, no matter how cold it is, no matter what, flip off my shoes, walk in the sand, get the sun, like you said, brisk walk. And it just like, and it's so funny because in the beginning, okay, now I'm going to listen to my Audible. I'm going to make those calls. I'm going to be productive when I'm walking. And now I'm definitely no, this is my time to just be. And the value is so much more than flooding my brain with these distractions. It's actually just not forcing, it's a choice to be present in whatever's happening, which that's where you start to feel good. You're getting the exercise, but you're also in the moment. What chemical is that releasing where you're just like fully in the present, but you're getting
that calming I would say it's the seesaw between the glutamate and the gamma. The GABA, the primary excitatory, the primary inhibitory. You're bringing yourself to that calm.
Mm.
That's funny you say that, because I'll do the same thing. I walk kind of in the woods, and it'll be all right. So I want to listen to this. Got to get this done. This is important for today, Mike. But I'm just going to give myself the first 10 minutes where I don't, and then I'm like, oh no, this is too good. I'm not doing it, because at the end of this, you're going to say that was the right decision, because so much more comes out of it, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's almost for me, it was an incredibly not hard, but took a lot of practice. It was a learned thing because I was
Yeah,
so
yeah,
used to, especially with younger kids and my business,
yeah,
just flooded all the time, noise, TVs,
yeah,
talking, people, phones, internet, like social media. Like it's just like you're just so used to flooding yourself with all that stuff that it
yeah,
really took a concerted effort for me to push it all aside and say, how about there's nothing for a while and see how that is? And it was uncomfortable and it was awful. And my urges to like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
but I just had this great idea or this thought, or I
yeah,
want to text.
yeah.
It's like, it'll wait. It's okay. And just like it's learned practice because we are not trained in society to operate that way. We are trained on the exact opposite these days.
Absolutely. It is learned. For me, have you ever heard of the hike, the Camino, Santiago de Compostela? It's through southern France, through the Pyrenees Mountains, from the east to the west of Spain. I did that hike I'll be 65 in a couple weeks. At 50, I wanted to start the second half of my life that way, but I read about it in a book, The Alchemist. I don't know if you've ever read that
Yep.
book,
Love
right?
that book.
Beautiful book, right? So
Yep.
it just was like, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. At the time, I was doing a syndicated radio show, and I'm like, this will be great. I want to do this hike and I'll broadcast it from the trail, and it's everything I talk about. It'll be the physical part of your health. It's 800 kilometers at 534 miles. It'll be the emotional part. I'll do it by myself. The intellectual part, I'll have to brush up on my old junior high Spanish, get some French in there. The spiritual part, it's got a 1,200-year rich, beautiful spiritual history. I'll do it for all these reasons, because then it validates why I can do that,
Yeah.
because I have to do all these things. None of those things happened. I went on the fast forward, went on the trip. It was the most game-changing thing of my life. It taught me how to feel this calm myself without any other reason other than learning how to do it. Since then, I am a walker, 5 miles a day, boom, out there, because I have to, because I know how my body feels as a result of it. I mean, to the point where my daughter met me over there. She met me in Madrid, and I picked her up at the airport, and this is 32 days to do this hike. So, a month plus
Ooh,
after. And she's looking at me and kind of staring at me. And I said, Jackie, what's wrong? She goes, Mom, it's like you're on drugs. I said, I don't do drugs. And she's like, what? And I'm like, this is what I learned to tap into, and I will never forget this.
I love that. And I have to say, you've got the magic cure for anti-aging because you do
Oh,
not look 65. And I guarantee that has a lot to do with that aspect of what you're doing. Like she
yeah,
said, you're on drugs
yeah,
because you
yeah,
do it, you emanate from the inside out, how you feel, your state of mind, your
yeah,
spiritual state of mind, your physical state of
yeah,
mind. You
yeah.
emanate that for sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's a very kind thing to say. It is how I feel. And it that to know that you can tap into that with
Yeah.
that something as simple as, and figuring out what it is. Don't make it like, I hate bike riding, but that's going to be really good for me. I'm going to do it. I hate swimming. Do what makes you feel good,
Yeah.
and do something where you can reach that calm and reach that chemically, the serotonin, the dopamine, all those other things that we get as an added bonus, that have no copay, that have no deductible, that have no, price tag on them. They're stored in you. You're a drugstore, right? Bring out those good parts instead of trying to reach for something from the outside to change this.
Oh, that was a beautiful soundbite right there because that
Uh,
is 100% addiction. It's
yeah,
looking for that thing outside of us instead
exactly.
of looking inside. And
Exactly.
I think a lot of people, and again, I'll just bring back to like my age and stuff, what they're willing to, the time they're willing to give themselves is down here. It's like, oh, I
Yep.
gotta, my kids, my this, my work,
Yep.
and I gotta be there for
Yep.
this, and I gotta keep a clean house. And like
Yep.
their willingness to put that same amount of time into themselves, they feel guilty about it. And
Right.
like, you've got to get to a
Right.
point where you realize this is the most important thing. And the more you can put into this, the better you are for all
Right.
of those other things.
Right. You can show up as the best you. I could have had a million reasons that were valid for why I lived the crazy frenetic life that I did. A
Yeah.
million reasons. And they'd all be, yep, 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 that makes sense. But at the end of it, it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And you got to know your worth, and you are worth that. And
Yeah.
you're going to show up better. You're going to be better for others, and you're going to lead by example. And I think a lot of people there, again, just talking about the addiction, you're in sort of a codependence relationship with people or things like, I want to go do that, but I don't want to go by myself. And my partner doesn't want to go. So I'll just stay here with my partner. Or
Right.
I want to go do this. Come on, kids. Oh, they don't want to do it. They're teenagers. Okay, I just won't do that. So there's got to be some like, and I loved your adventurous spirit where it's like, it doesn't matter if anybody else wants to go or not go with you.
Yep.
You
Yep.
go do you. And
Yep.
again, the more comfortable you become with yourself, doing the things, the motivation, that self, you have to get yourself because you don't have someone talking you into it or pulling you to do it.
Right.
You
Right.
gain that sort of discipline, but then you also get that pleasure of, I didn't want to do it, or I did it,
Yep.
and look how good I feel. And now look at me to be better for everybody else and sort of lead
Absolutely.
from the front with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. You show up better for yourself. And then you are teaching those who you really care about of how they can take care of themselves by example, not just words.
Not just words, and not codependence, and not
Right.
all the other
Right.
things that go with the addictive relationships and all the different things where you need other people for your validation, where you
Right.
need other people for your sense of well-being. You really learn to generate it and find it within. Just like we talked about, you're not needing that
Yep.
external validation. You learn
Right.
how to create that internally without the need of any of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And life is a gift. And so often we don't see it as the gift. We're so busy doing all that stuff until that gift is on its way out. And then all of
Mm.
a sudden it's like, wow, what did I do? All those things don't matter. That they don't matter. It's you showing up every day as the best you is the part that matters. And then in a, maybe way too optimistic viewpoint of life, but we can all do better as a result of all showing up that way.
Yeah. And doing it guilt-free.
Yeah,
We don't have to feel bad about it or guilty about it. It just is.
absolutely. Absolutely. And if this, like with the work that we do, as I said, I did a TED talk, and this is one of the things I say in the TED talk about it's understanding the biomarkers of addiction. It's we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. And it's in knowing what those weaknesses are and optimizing those weaknesses can change your life, can change
Mm,
your life.
mm. So would you recommend, or do you think like everybody could do this genetic marker test? Let's say they're not struggling with addiction at this point or known
Yeah.
addiction,
Yeah,
just a normie or every other person. Is this beneficial to like every person on this planet?
absolutely. And it's a
Mm,
one-time test, right? So we started with wired for addiction. We were in the criminal justice space. We were trying to mitigate, people's struggles through the court system, that kind of thing. And then people said, this is great. I'm not quite at the addicted place, but I know I'm not right. I am all these other things. So we created Wired Biohealth. And
mm,
everyone, to me, like when people interview me and say, where do you want to see this? I'm like, I want to see it like a CBC. I want to see it like you go to your physician and it's like, let's see who you uniquely are. We are at the time of personalized medicine. We do have the science and the technology to live out personalized medicine. We should be doing it. So it's a one time. This is what you're made up of. Like the kid that I talked to and said, your buddies are going to do this. Don't do it. You still get to make your choices, but you're not going to walk away the way they walk away. Your
mm.
life will have the opportunity to get a lot harder after that. Be really clear on that choice that you're making. To me, that's the sweet spot. Like you can prevent so much.
Oh my God. Could you imagine if like every
Yeah.
even like a 12-year-old teenager that's starting to get her female hormones and about to get crazy, you do
Absolutely.
this test and you can have this conversation with her like, this is going to make things a whole lot worse, but these things will make it a whole lot better. So
Yeah.
let's explore those things before trip down the rabbit hole that we can actually prevent.
Right, right. Or that kid that, the hormones are starting to blossom. Okay, let's do this. Let's do this for 3 months. Whoa, my God, I feel totally different. And you should. And then you know what? If down the road something happens in your life, you become a mom, right? And everything is upside down. Come back. We'll figure out where you're at that point. But we know what your starting point is.
I love that because, like, especially these days, every woman is now being diagnosed with postpartum. Let's
Oh,
put
yeah.
them on medications. Same sort of thing. And for me, I'm like, dude, they just need sleep. Like they're
Yes.
literally sleeping like
Yes.
2 hours a
Yes.
night, and like
Yes.
they're dealing with a screaming child who they
Yeah.
can't like communicate with, and they're trying to figure it out. Like, of
Yep.
course, there's all these things going on. Let's not just medicate it, but let's figure out a way to
Right.
get them where they can get more quality sleep or something like that, so that then
Absolutely.
they're not put on medication for the rest of their life for the postpartum.
Absolutely. And we have quite a few young moms that come to us for that reason. Now they're on, anti-anxiety, antidepressant. Like, yeah, you're going to be anxious and depressed because right now your life is really hard,
Really
really hard.
hard.
And you're not sleeping on top of that. None of this is like, oh, okay. You thought going to work was the hard part. This is like, whoa, now, and then a lot still have to go to work and you haven't
Yeah.
slept all night and you want to kill somebody. You know, it's,
Yeah.
it's,
And you're not your best, and you have
it's
people going
normal.
like, "What? Gosh, she's a bitch." And it's like, dude, do
Yeah,
you know what I'm
exactly.
dealing
Yeah,
with?
it's normal to respond that way.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. So please, let's tell our listeners, and I got to get myself one of these kits because,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
just, I am so fascinated by this stuff, and anything that I can do better or feel better or get them more out of, or just even the education, I find it so fascinating. So
Yeah,
please tell our listeners where they can connect with you, they can get a
sure,
kit, they can start this
sure.
process.
So you could call our office 888-841-7099. You can go to our websites where you can look at all the information. That's really what I suggest you do. Get on there, take a look. So Wired for Addiction or Wired Biohealth. Go on there, look at everything. And we even offer 15-minute complimentary consultations with one of our clinicians to say what's going on with you, uniquely you. What have you done so far? What's worked? What hasn't worked? And point you in a direction. Definitely suggest that you take advantage of that, but life doesn't have to be as hard as it is. And we have the science behind it to say it doesn't have to be as hard as it is. And we're still living in the dark ages. That doesn't make sense.
I love that. As you were saying that, I was just thinking about all the thousands of vitamins that I used to take, to
Yeah,
fix this, feel better
yeah,
about that.
yeah,
This like just handfuls of vitamins. I don't know if I needed them or not, but
exactly,
I was sold on this
exactly.
is how to make you feel. And I take it and I'm like, I don't know if I feel any better, but it's supposed to be good for me. And so I would just take supplements and supplements and supplements and supplements. And they're costly and they're expensive. And now as
Right.
you and I are talking, probably not necessary. I was probably trying to fix
Correct.
something that wasn't broken for a lot of the things, or not getting the right things that would actually help me with what I needed.
Thank you for bringing that up, Angie. That is so important. Like, and I said to somebody, so how come you've been taking whatever, XYZ? Well, a friend of mine took it and it really worked for him or her, or I read it in whatever. Like, okay, okay, okay. People take so much. In fact, I do a lot of speaking around the world, and I was just a few weeks ago do amazing trips that I get to do as an opportunity for this, but speaking to a group. And then we did 5 lectures. And then at the end of it, they had a Q&A. So one of the gentlemen said, actually from California, it's a lot of usually people from around the world. He was from California. And he said, can you just kind of give us the cheat sheet of what we should take? And I'm like, you know what? Doesn't work that way. People take so much that they don't need. First off, the amount of money you're spending on all that stuff is unbelievable,
Yep.
but it's really good marketing for
Yep.
companies, and they tell you have to be taking this, and then you don't even know how it's made up.
Yep.
Beyond that, I'm like, with what we do, we identify where your weakness is. What do we need to do? And we're even doing that short term, because we don't want your body to forget how to continue making this. A great example of that is glutathione. When I put somebody on glutathione, it's 6 days a week, take the 7th day off. however whatever day you want that to be, because I don't want your liver to say, oh, I can get lazy and stop doing this. I want to
Mm,
help your liver make it, not make it in place of your liver. So all of these things,
wow.
you're probably taking, not you, but listeners are probably taking so
Yeah.
much stuff that they don't even have to be taking. Let's zero in. It goes back to, this is what's uniquely you. You know, the industry of supplements really didn't do anything different than the pharmaceuticals. Here, take this, it's a Band-Aid. Here, take this, it's a Band-Aid. We're saying, no, let's see what you're made up of, figure out you, get you off to the races.
Yeah, because there is zero one size fits all. Everybody is unique.
Right.
Everyone has their own certain things. I love that because yeah, I open up my vitamin cabinet and I'm like,
Yeah.
why did I think I needed all these? Well, I was trying to fix something that I thought was broken that maybe
Right.
wasn't broken. And I'm
Maybe.
trying to be healthy and prevent illness, but it was just adding stuff to my body that did not need to be there.
Right. Right.
Ah, I love that. I can't wait to take this test and see, if and what I do need to add or not, because you think about the cost incurred with that. I'm sure
Right.
taking this test is a fraction of what like that entire cabinet of pills that I have
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. For a lifetime.
for a lifetime,
Yeah.
or until some other major event where we're like, let's look at it again because
Yep.
things aren't working the way they used to. What do I need to tweak now?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Ah, you've been such an amazing guest. Thank you so
Oh,
much for
it's
coming on
wonderful.
the show. I love this stuff. I mean, I could just talk about it all day long because we're like speaking the same language. I love
Exactly.
that you
Exactly.
incorporate the addiction piece to it, which in an ideal world, this would be the thing that we do first and foremost for every single person that walks into the program. Let's figure this out so that this can be part of going forward, what that looks like. And who knows? Maybe it will be. Maybe we can do some sort of
Yep.
thing like this together where we can
Yep.
actually create that reality and help people in the best way that's specific for them.
Right. Which would be beautiful, because that's at the end of it, that's what we want to do. You know,
Yeah,
that's and when life gets easier, you're showing up better.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's
And
life's a
you're
gift.
bouncing back. Even when it punches you in the face, you get down, you're like, God, that
Yeah.
sucked. And you
Back
get
up.
back.
Yep. Back up.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's life. That's real life. So you're going to get punched. It's
Yeah.
you get back
Yeah.
up, and how do you get back up?
How do you get back up? And what's that response time? Like, do you stay down for like
Yep.
2 weeks or do you like go
Yep.
down and you're like, okay, I'm back,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
kind of like me. I had a really bad day yesterday. I'm like, fuck it. And then this morning I
Yeah.
woke up, I'm like, all right, let's go.
Let's
Like, I
go.
forgot all about it. I had a good night's sleep and I'm good to go.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the resilience of our body. It is possible.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I can't wait for our listeners to get this information and connect with you. And I, for sure, myself will be getting one of these kits so we can see what else I can do to help improve my condition as well. Not that I
Well,
have
thank
a
you.
condition, but just
Yeah.
improve my quality of
Yeah.
life more than it
Yeah.
already is.
Make you a better Angie. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me and for doing the podcast that you do, because this is how people learn
Yeah.
about this. You know, you go to your physician, your GP, your internist, your PCP, whomever, they're going to look at you like, I don't know that because I have 5 minutes to treat you and I'm going to give you this. It's the
Yeah.
way the system is set up. So thank you for having this conversation, because this is how people learn. And then, you know, even if it's like somebody with an addiction who's like, they don't want to hear it yet, listen to Angie's podcast. This is an easy way to say, it's not you trying to be you. It's like we're all built a different way. We're all wired a different way. This is your unique blueprint. Let's look at that, because it's going to make it so much easier. Not like,
Yeah, absolutely. Because no addict wants to be told what to do. That's partly
no,
why they're
no.
addicts. They're kind of rebellious, you know?
Exactly. That's the part. That's the starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
I'm sure
it's,
I have that marker real big in my body.
yeah, 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 yeah. And that's healthy though. We all have to have it to a certain point,
Right,
right? Right.
right. Because
So
that's
that
that free
that
will piece. Yeah,
bingo. It's always everything in our body, everything in our life is an orchestra. It's a dance. That homeostasis, that balance. It's no different for your physiology
yeah,
than your outer who you are. You're like, no, you're not going to tell me what to do. That's actually good. It's how we use it,
yep.
right?
I love that. Yeah, we don't want to kill that piece in people because
No, we
that's
do
the
not.
I know what's right for me
Yep.
feeling. And we don't want that to be suppressed. We want people to know what's right and feel good about it and be validated and acknowledged for having that.
Right, right. It's who you are uniquely, just as what we look at as your unique physiology. Same exact thing. We get both of them optimal and life is good.
We love that. Awesome. Well, you have a fantastic rest of your day and week, and I'm excited. I will probably be reaching out to you for a part 2, just because I feel like there's so much more we could talk about.
Absolutely.
And the more we can get out there, free, information like you and I talked about, the better. Let's just do more of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Angie.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.